I'm Elizabeth and I'm here to talk about books. Today I'm actually at home on a Friday when there's daylight outside, so I thought I'd take the opportunity and film a Friday Reads video. I have finished 3 books since I last spoke about the books I read this year. One of them I touched upon in that video. It's called Vi ses imorgon, or We Will Meet Tomorrow, by Tore Renberg. And that is the first book in a trilogy that is called the Texas Trilogy. It's set in a suburb outside of Stavanger, and it follows a group of petty criminals and how they go about their lives. We also meet a bunch of other people. It's a book told from multiple perspectives, and we see how all of these people touch each other's life over a period of a few days in a week in September. And I quite enjoyed the book. I felt I got to know several of the characters fairly well. I started to care for some of them, which is a good thing. However, I did find the book a bit too wordy, might be what I'd call it. It's very chatty. There's just too many words. I felt the verbosity of the author just slowed down the story, and I usually like slow stories, but this book was just slow in a way I didn't like. But overall it was an enjoyable read. It's a fun book, and I will probably read the other 2 in the trilogy as well. Just having a break from them for right now, because I think reading the entire trilogy at once would just be too much. But it was okay. I gave it 3 stars. It was good, but not great. Then I've also finished Liv i skogen, Our Life in the Forest. This is called in English by Marie Darrieussecq. This was originally written in French. I had very high hopes for this because I read Being Here by the same author last year, and I absolutely adored that book. And probably because of that, I found this a bit disappointing. I don't know if it's because I read Being Here in an English translation and this in a Norwegian translation, that it just fit better for me in English, her writing style, I mean. But I don't think so. I think it's the content of the book, and this is sort of a dystopian story where we meet a woman who is clearly a fugitive living in a forest. She knows she's going to die pretty soon, and she wants to write down her story before that happens, and that kind of affects how the story is told. It's very fragmented, and she just jumps around a bit, and there's lots of stuff like, oh, I forgot to tell this, oh, I'm gonna put in a footnote because this should have been here, and it's just trying to look like an unedited manuscript. And I liked the style to begin with. I liked the story, but after a while I just got bored with it somehow. And I mean, it's only 140 pages, so you shouldn't really have time to get bored. As the book goes along, you kind of get the bigger picture. You get to see more of her previous life before coming to the forest, and you get to know why she is dying. But overall, this was not as strong as I hoped it would be. I gave this as well 3 stars. It was good, but I think this is a case of my high expectations kind of ruining some of the experience of reading this book, because it was just not as good as Being Here. And then the last book I have finished since last time is a graphic novel. It's called This One Summer by Gillian and Mariko Tamaki. I think this is a YA graphic novel. It's a story about a young girl who goes to a summer holiday by a lake with her parents, and in the cottage or on holiday she meets up with her friend that she meets every summer, and they have 10 days of spending time together and doing all the summer things. And this book was both very cute and nostalgic. You're kind of remembering those summers of childhood, but there's also some other layers to this that made it more than just a cutesy story. There are some issues with her parents, and that played out really well, and that added depth to this story. And there's also a side plot with some teenagers in the area where they are holidaying, and overall I really enjoyed this. It was both cute and sweet and nostalgic, and it gave me something to think about. So this was so far one of the highlights of my reading year, but sadly that's not saying much, because my reading year has not started out great because I've made some weird choices. But it's Friday and it's the start of the weekend, and I'm hoping to change that by reading some things that I will really enjoy over these next few days and the coming week. So one thing I will be reading is the saga of Eric the Red. I read half of that last night, and I'm probably going to finish it today because it's not very long. That's part of Sagalong. It's the first saga of that readathon, and I think I might be reading a couple of other sagas from this as well, because once I get into it, I think I can't stop with just the one, and a lot of them are fairly short, so I'm probably gonna get through a couple of more short ones in addition to Eric the Red. I have also started rereading The Ice Palace by Tarjei Vesaas. I read this in Norwegian last year, and I want to read this English edition as well and make a video talking about the two, so hopefully that will be coming up soon. I am also almost halfway through The Flame Alphabet by Ben Marcus. This was a recommendation from Mark Nash. He was talking about Ben Marcus's latest book, and I asked where he would recommend me to start with this author, and he said with one of his novels. So I chose this because it sounded amazing, with the premise of the speech of children having become toxic and sort of creating an epidemic, making all the adults very sick, or ill, probably, but the right word. I am not quite halfway through, a bit over 100 pages through this, and I am spending a lot of time reading this because it is the kind of book where I feel I need to be focused, and just for the past few weeks I've been very stressed and not in the right mind frame to be reading this book. It's not like plot heavy, thrillery kind of dystopian novel. This is slow and meticulous, and it's very centered around language, naturally because that's the premise of the book, but also the way it is written, and I am very much enjoying reading this. But I need to do it slowly to make it be the best experience it can be, because I need my brain when reading this book. And lately my brain has been mush, but I'm hoping that I will get some time this weekend where I am able to actually sit down and concentrate and read a few more chapters in this. The last book I would say I am currently reading is Best Served Cold by Joe Abercrombie. In December I listened to all 3 books in the First Law trilogy, and I loved every second of it, and kind of wanted to dive straight into Best Served Cold, which is the 4th book. It's a standalone set in the same universe where a lot of the same characters show up in minor parts, but we have a new main character, and I managed to postpone my reading of this with about 3 weeks, but now I couldn't wait anymore and I just wanted to dive in, and I did, and I am loving every second of this as well, both because I am loving the actual books and because I think they work really well as audiobooks. The narrator is doing a great job with them. So that's what I'm listening to on my commute, and it's what I will be listening to over the weekend when I'm doing housework. And it's one of those very rare audiobooks that makes me actually want to do housework because I want to listen to the audiobook. And that's a feat because I hate doing housework. So, what are you currently reading? Do you have any exciting plans for the weekend? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.